What's going on, everyone? We need to talk about this movie, Sound of Freedom. It's just a oh my god, mind buster type of movie. It's such a deep, impactful movie than more than any other type of movie that's been out recently. Quick little summary: it's about this Homeland Security officer named Tim Ballard. This is based off of a true story, by the way, who works in the area of the Homeland Security that deals with taking down pedophiles. Hard, intense type of work as is. But essentially what happens, he finds this one job that kind of hits him really deep, really harsh, and instead of just stopping the people that are doing this, he starts to reach out and try to actually save the children so that they don't have to go through this type of experience. So you don't have to worry about doing this type of slavery, essentially. So essentially, Tim kind of takes down this one man who's been trying to try to find kids for other people to kind of do the deed, per se. But what he ends up doing is going into the cell and kind of scaring the shit out of this guy, making him think he's gonna I thought everyone that I talked to thought that he was gonna beat the shit out of this guy, take his rage out on him, essentially. But what he ends up kind of doing is kind of befriending him, quote unquote, and getting him to make him believe that Tim himself is a pedophile as well, and he's actually been doing this to try to get more connections to try to do it himself. So he ends up kind of doing this on his own will, doing this undercover situation to get this man to talk about his sources and who he's trying to get and everything like this. Then therefore basically arrests the guy again, and then ends up kind of finding out more information how this type of world actually opens up and works. It's so interesting and intense because, as I said, it starts off in this type of really dark moment where you think he's just going to take his frustration out on these pedophiles and take it out on this one guy that he just arrested. But he ends up just basically playing good mind games with this guy to end up getting him as much information as possible. It's so crazy. And basically in this scene we find out the weird just creepiness. One of the parts of this kind of whole situation is they don't give these kids actual names. They treat them more literally like animals. And you find out that the one name of the one kid that we are kind of mainly following, they go off the name kind of Teddy Bear. It's so just denigrating because it's so terrible in what's kind of happening to these kids. So essentially what ends up happening is Tim finds out this information from this man and tracks it down, and ends up tracking down one child and ends up saving this one child that was coming in from Colombia to Mexico, and then from Mexico into the United States. Through saving this one boy, the boy ends up asking him basically are you going to be able to help save my sister? So with this kind of conversation of can you save my sister, he ends up basically trying to end up saving this girl and then therefore other children that are in this kind of sex ring type of situation. Basically he ends up trying to go directly to Colombia to help figure out where this one little girl is to save her. So in the process he connects with the Colombian police and government organizations to help narrow down the suspects and who these people are. And in the process, he ends up connecting with a man that goes by the name of Vampiro. It's not really described as to what his real name is, but this man's basically an ex-Colombian drug lord. He's been in jail for years, out of jail, and kind of did the whole typical drug lord type of thing of dealing with guns and drugs and that type of stuff, but is now kind of just starting to jump over onto the good side to end up trying to help people with his knowledge of the criminal organizations that he has. So between Tim, the Colombian government and police, and this man, Tim Vampiro, they eventually come to this conclusion that the easiest way of doing it is to try to get as many of these kids together at once so they can set up this one big sting organization by setting up this kind of rich man society party island that's connected only for high-end rich individuals that have this weird proclivity to young children. But before all this island organization kind of comes down, we do get a lot of the why are you doing this type of moments throughout each kind of individual person. The main reason that it hits home for Tim is literally he keeps on saying throughout the movie of what if it was your child, what if it's your child, like how would you imagine your kid going through this? Now, Vampiro doesn't have any children of his own, so it doesn't really work necessarily on him, but his why are you doing this reason is such a crazy in-depth story. I'm not going to go into too much of his story because you really have to hear it from him, the actor, kind of telling it in the movie. It's very in-depth, very intense, and you just really just have to hear him say it, hear it actually happening in the movie. But kind of going forward into this raid onto the island, there's the biggest holy shit moment basically is when Tim is talking with this other high-end like drug lord boss that is trying to sneak away with one of the children, and they get into this big fight, big argument that almost ends up blowing the cover of the entire organization, and it leaves you kind of like throughout the entire moment because you don't know what is actually happening, what is going on, and how it's going to actually play out. Again, just a little bit of spoilers, just kind of telling about what happens, but not going to go into the full detail. Basically, we end up finding out that throughout this situation that the main little girl that we're looking for is not actually even part of this group, and Tim has to go to an even deeper, even harder, more secure area part of Colombian jungle, deep in the jungle, to help try to rescue this girl, because she's being captive by this other gang organization led by the man who goes by the Scorpion. He basically has a big scorpion tattoo. So he's this really intense man that no one can enter into this part, not even like the police or the military of Colombia can actually infiltrate this part of the jungle. But this shows on how intense Tim's rigor is to want to actually help these kids, that he's willing to put his life, not only his life on the line, but like willing to go through something that's gonna probably end up a more torturous type of death instead of just an instant getting killed. He knows that he's putting his own life and situation on the line to help save, again, just this one girl that he doesn't even actually know, just based off of the what if it was your child mentality. So other than the story and the script and the intensity of what the real situation is, this movie is also really beautifully shot and color graded, and the cinematography is also really good. There's multiple scenes in the movie where they really use this kind of closed off mentality. They kind of bring it down almost to like a 4:3 like ratio in a way to kind of close off the main person or the main subject matter of what's going on in the situation. There's many times when it's just one person, the camera's looking directly at the one person, and because it's like tight off, it's very close, and it makes you feel even more intense and depressed and empathetic for what is going on in the situation. And therefore also with how tight the shots are, the colors are really blue and ominous colors. The color grading is done so well in this movie as well. That was just my one little snippet I wanted to say about the actual filmmaking part of it as well. So overall, this movie is just so good, but in a completely different way than a normal like blockbuster would be. This movie has more of a real life situation. It's really tied as like empathy as being your biggest kind of connecting point to this movie, whereas other blockbusters like Spider-Man or Transformers or the Barbie movie, anything like that that's coming out this summer, they're big kind of entertainment type of big blockbuster movies that are all still going to be good in their own realm, own real for that entertainment value. If you really want a really story-driven, great film-making style movie that actually makes you think, make sure to check this out. And one thing I really liked is that because this is based off of a true story, as most movies inspired by true stories are, they show the real people at the end like they normally would. But this also has a message directly from like the people kind of making it, where they talk about the real world situation of what is kind of going on in this kind of situation and to this day what is actually happening. So with this, they shared this QR code that I'm going to have here right here as well, so you can scan or check out the website yourself to buy the tickets from them directly instead of from Cineplex or Landmark or whatever theater you go see this in. Which it still supports the theater because you do need to support the theater as well, but with a portion of the money actually going towards organizations that help save children in these types of situations. So not only is it just being a entertaining and a mindful type of movie, it actually is going out to actually help what they're trying to do. So yeah, if you're looking for something to go see that it's not not just necessarily a big, like, blow 'em up type of movie. You want something that's gonna actually make you think and make you feel, make sure to go check this out. And if you do, again, use the QR code. I don't get any profit from this. Any money that you use goes towards the organization, and like it said, portion of it actually goes towards helping the children and kids. But that's it from me. Thanks for watching. Make sure to check out this movie. It is such an important thing to go see. Other than that, see you in the next one.